Okay, readers, sitting up so straight and tall, turn on your thinking brains. Remember, does anyone remember our job this week? Yeah, it's to make predictions about a text. Good readers make predictions in the beginning of the text, at the front cover, during the text, and they even check their prediction at the end of the text. So we're going to use our schema and clues from the story to make our predictions. Now, if we look at the front cover, what does the front cover helps me predict? Well, I need to look at the title and the illustration. So the title is called A Chair for My Mother. And if I look, there's a little girl and she's got her knapsack. And I see that she's looking into a restaurant, and I notice that because of the food and the waitress in the background. And so because of the title and the illustration, I predict this little girl wants to get a job at a restaurant. And maybe she wants to do that because she wants to get a chair for her mother. So maybe I'm predicting that she broke her mother's chair and she's going to try and get a job to get her a chair. Let's read to find out. A chair for my mother. Now, the illustrator is telling us that this picture is very important because it was on the front cover. It's different though. Right now it says Blue Tile Diner. So diner is like another word for a restaurant, and a diner usually sells breakfast food. My mother works as a waitress in the Blue Tile Diner. After school, sometimes I go to meet her there. Then her boss, Josephine, gives me a job too. I wash the salts and peppers and fill the ketchups. One time I peeled all the onions for the onion soup. When I finish, Josephine says, "Good work, honey," and pays me, and every time I put half of my money into the jar. It takes a long time to fill a jar this big. Every day when my mother comes home from work, I take down the jar. My mama empties all her change from tips out of her purse for me to count. Then we push all the coins into the jar. Well, I'm going to make a prediction because I'm using clues from the story. If the title was called A Chair for My Mother, I predict that they use this money in the jar to buy a chair. Let's read to find out if I'm correct. Sometimes my mama is laughing when she comes home from work. Sometimes she's so tired she falls asleep while I count the money out in piles. Some days she has lots of tips. Some days she has only a little. Then she looks worried. But each evening, every single shiny coin goes into that jar. I predict that these characters are going to fill up the jar because they show a lot of perseverance. Can you say that? Perseverance. Yeah, I'm using what I already know about perseverance to help me better understand this story, because perseverance means that even when it's really hard or the goal isn't anywhere close, you keep working towards it and you show perseverance. So my prediction is that these characters will fill up the jar because they've already showed perseverance. We sit in the kitchen to count the tips. Usually Grandma sits with us too. While we count, she likes to hum. Often she has money in her old leather wallet for us. Whenever she gets a good bargain on tomatoes or bananas she buys, she puts by the savings and they go into the jar. That's what Grandma likes to do. Now, I'm wondering, why is it so important to buy a jar? I predict that they're trying to get a special chair for the mom who works really hard. What do you predict? Why would they want a chair? Keep those predictions in your brain. Let's read to find out. When we can't get a single other coin into that jar, we're going to take all of that money and go buy a chair. Yes, a chair, a wonderful, beautiful, fat, soft armchair. We will get one covered in velvet with roses all over it. We're going to get the best chair in the whole world. That's because our old chair burned up. There was a big fire in our other house. All of our chairs burned. So did our sofa, and so did everything else. That wasn't such a long time ago. Oh wow, I didn't predict that there was a fire. I didn't see any clues or have any background knowledge that they had a fire in their house. My mother and I were coming home from buying new shoes. I had new sandals. She had new pumps. We were walking to our house from the bus. We were looking at everyone's tulips. She was saying she liked red tulips, and I was saying I liked yellow ones. Then we came to our block. Right outside our house stood two big fire engines. I could see lots of smoke. Tall orange flames came out of the roof. All the neighbors stood in a bunch across the street. Mama grabbed my hand and we ran. My Uncle Sandy saw us and ran to us. Mama yelled, "Where's Mother?" I yelled, "Where's my grandma?" My Aunt Ida waved and shouted, she's here, don't worry." Grandma was all right. Our cat was safe too, though it took a while to find her. But everything else in our house was spoiled. What was left of the house was turned to charcoal and ashes. We went to stay with my mother's sister, Aunt Ida, and Uncle Sandy. Then we were able to move into the apartment downstairs. We painted the walls yellow. The floors were all shiny, but the rooms were very empty. Wow. So these characters showed a lot of resilience because something so horrible happened to them, but they kept pushing through. They showed that really big word that we learned about. What's that? The initial sound is a P. Perseverance. They showed perseverance to get back into an apartment. So that's why I predict they're going to get to raise the money for a really soft velvet armchair, because I'm using clues from the story that tell me they're really hard workers, these characters are. The first day we moved in, the neighbors brought pizza and cake and ice cream, and they brought a lot of other things too. The family across the street brought a table and 3 kitchen chairs. The very old man next door gave us a bed from when his children were little. My other grandpa brought us his beautiful rug. My mother's other sister had made us red and white curtains. Mama's boss, Josephine, brought us pots and pans, silverware, and dishes. My cousin brought me her own stuffed bear. Wow! I didn't realize how much the community would help them. Everyone clapped when my grandma made a speech. "You all are the kindest people," she said, "and we thank you very much. It's lucky we're young and can still start over." That was last year, but we still have no sofa or no big chairs. When Mama comes home, her feet hurt. "There's no good place for me to take a load off," she says. When Grandma wants to sit back and hum and cut up potatoes, she has to get as comfortable as she can on a hard kitchen chair. Ooh, that doesn't seem comfy. So that is how come Mama brought home the biggest jar she could find at the diner, and all the coins started to go into the jar. Now the jar is too heavy for me to lift down. Uncle Sandy gave me a quarter. He had to boost me up so I could put it in. So if you predict that you're going to use their jar of money to buy a chair, pretend like you're sitting in a chair and lean back. And if you predict they're going to use their jar of money to buy something else, share that with us. What do you predict? Shall we predict? Keep those predictions in your brain so we can find out. After supper, Mama and Grandma and I stood in front of the jar. "Well, I never would have believed it, but I guess it's full," Mama said. My mother brought home little paper wrappers from the nickels and dimes and the quarters. I counted them all and wrapped them all up. On my mother's day off, we took all the coins to the bank. The bank exchanged them for $10 bills. Then we took the bus downtown to shop for our chair. We shopped through 4 furniture stores. We tried out big chairs and smaller ones, high chairs and low chairs, soft chairs and hard chairs. Grandma said she felt like Goldilocks and the 3 little bears trying out all those chairs. Finally, we found the chair we were all dreaming of, and the money in the jar was enough to pay for it. We called Aunt Ida and Uncle Sandy. They came right down in their pickup truck to drive the chair home for us. They knew we couldn't wait for it to be delivered. Wow, look at their facial expressions. They look really pleased, huh? I tried out our chair in the back of the truck. Mama wouldn't let me sit there while we drove, but they let me sit in it when they carried it up the door. I'm going to use clues from the story, and I'm thinking about all their perseverance. I predict these characters are so relieved that they worked so hard for something and they finally got it. They probably feel proud too. We set the chair right beside the window with the red and white curtains. Grandma and Mama and I all sat in it while Aunt Ida took our picture. Now Grandma sits in it and talks with people going by in the daytime. Mama sits down and watches the news on TV when she comes home. After supper, I sit with her and she can reach right up and turn out the lights if I fall asleep in her lap. And there's the picture of them. So if you predicted that the characters were going to show perseverance to get money and grit and raise money for a chair, your prediction was correct. And good readers check their prediction at the end. So my prediction was right or correct because I predicted, even in the beginning, that she was going to try and get money for a chair for my mother. Part of my prediction was wrong because she didn't really work at the restaurant unless her mama was working there. But part of my prediction was correct because they worked hard for a chair for her mother. So predicting, show me prediction, helped me